Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Jamie Best. I'm manager here at the College of North Atlantic facility in Bonavista. Would like to welcome you to the Harris Center Memorial Presents session, which starts off 2 days of meetings here in the Bonavista Peninsula. A couple of housekeeping items. Emergency exits through the door on the right here or at the end of the cafeteria, out the main doors, either right or left. Washrooms are located across the hall directly through this door, or at the back, take a left and then the first left around the corner. So it's just like a college campus. If you get lost, eventually you'll come to a door which will let you outside. So without further ado, we'll give the floor over to Mike.
Thank you very much, Jamie, and thank you also to you and your staff for the really warm hospitality we have received here on the Bonavista campus of the College of the North Atlantic. Thank you very, very much. And thank you, all of you, for coming here this evening in such large numbers to hear us talk about creating cultural destinations using art, heritage, and place. My name is Mike Clare. I am the Associate Director for Public Policy at Memorial University's Harris Center, and I'm delighted to be your host here this evening, both for those of you who are here with me on the campus and those who are watching the live webcast. So welcome, everybody. We apologize for the delay in starting tonight. The Harris Center had a little misadventure this afternoon. We came across a car accident on the highway and helped out, so that affected our timing a little bit, so we appreciate your indulgence. With its picturesque outports, dramatic scenery, rich cultural heritage, and vibrant art scene, the Bonavista Peninsula is becoming a well-known cultural destination in the international tourism marketplace. Visitors from all over the world marvel at what the place has to offer. This enviable situation has not happened all by itself. It is the result of purposeful relationships between businesses, nonprofit organizations, and communities that allowed and facilitated collaborative development around cultural heritage. But surely there is more to be done. What other actions must we take to make the region an even more attractive place for visitors and residents alike? How can we better profile our artists and tradition bearers so that visitors can get an enhanced appreciation of our way of life? How can we preserve our built and natural landscapes so that they contribute to the sense of place? How can the arts community become a magnet to attract investment in the region? What is the role of governments, businesses, artists, and citizens in making the Bonavista Peninsula a showcase for Newfoundland culture? So these are some of the questions that we will be addressing here this evening. Before I introduce our four presenters, let me quickly outline the order of proceedings for our session. In a moment, I'll introduce our presenters who will speak in total for about an hour. So they'll set the stage for our discussion later on. And then it'll be your turn. For those of you in the room here with me, we will circulate a wireless microphone so that you can ask a question or make a comment from where you sit. So just raise your hand, we'll get the microphone over to you. For those of you who are watching via the web, there should be a text box somewhere on your screen that you can type in your question or your comment, and we will have somebody here read it out for our panel to address. The discussion session will be moderated by the Executive Director of the Harris Center, Dr. Robert Greenwood, and we will adjourn at 9 p.m. And lastly, let me quickly advertise a day-long workshop that the Harris Center will be holding tomorrow at Fisher's Loft in Port Rexton, where we will explore ways in which Memorial University can assist the Bonavista Peninsula become a more sustainable region. We will address three themes, including supporting entrepreneurs, and especially cultural entrepreneurs, food security, and investing in rural development. Admission to the workshop is free, and even if you have not registered yet, you're welcome to attend. The session begins with a complimentary breakfast at 8 o'clock, and the workshop starts at 9, and we will end at 4. Lunch is also provided complimentary. So with these housekeeping items out of the way, we now turn to our session. It's my pleasure to introduce our four panelists. I'll introduce them all at once in the order in which they will be speaking. Dr. Jennifer Dyer is Director of the Interdisciplinary Master's and Doctoral Programs at Memorial University and Associate Professor in Gender Studies. She is currently conducting research on how we support the arts in this province and has lectured and published on various aspects of Newfoundland art, culture, and heritage, among other topics. For 26 years, Marilyn Coles-Hayley was the administrator of the Bonavista campus of the College of the North Atlantic, where we are this evening. She was also the founder and managing director of the Bonavista Institute for Cultural Tourism. Marilyn is presently working as executive director with the Home from the Sea Foundation, Incorporated. She's also an active volunteer and has acted as chairperson for Tourism Elliston for the past 19 years. Her passion is working with communities on new initiatives leading to economic development and diversification. John Norman grew up in the historic community of Bonavista. During his student days at Memorial University, he purchased various pieces of vacant land and historic properties throughout Bonavista, which he believed were worth preserving. He returned to his hometown to work with the College of the North Atlantic, which he did until 2014. He has extensive experience as a volunteer on nonprofit boards and was once one of the youngest municipal politicians in the province. In 2014, John, along with Mark and Chantal Dixon, founded a new group of companies, Bonavista Living, Bonavista Creative, and Bonavista Creative Workshop. This triad of companies focuses on built heritage restoration and redevelopment, preserving and restoring the tangible and intangible cultural heritage of Bonavista. Bonavista Living is a privately funded company that operates a year-round heritage carpentry shop employing tradespeople from the community. And Marieke Gow grew up in Newfoundland and is the manager of the award-winning Artisan Inn and Twine Loft restaurant in Trinity. She holds an arts degree from Memorial University in History and Languages, a diploma in Community Development and Cross-Cultural Relations through the Cégep Marie-Victorin, and a sommelier certification from Algonquin College in Ottawa. As a volunteer, Marieke chairs Eastern Newfoundland's destination management organization that has the tagline Legendary Coasts, is vice chair of Hike Discovery, and is a board member of the province's tourism board. So it's my great pleasure to present these speakers to you and to ask Jennifer to come up to the podium.
Thank you. All right, today I'm going to be talking about three interrelated ideas, namely patronage for the arts, strategic corporate philanthropy, hot new topic, and place building. My aim is to show how each of these realms supports the other. Patronage is important in a democratic society, and it is important for well-run and successful businesses. Patronage is a form of place building, and without place building, there is neither corporate social responsibility, nor is there enduring corporate financial performance. My point is that where there is corporate funding of the arts, there is both a strong sense of place and strong businesses. Brief move into history here, so bear with me. Patronage began in 42 BC during the Roman Empire, when Octavian used the arts to restore order, to foster peace, and to develop prosperity. The patron-client relationship involved patron citizens sponsoring and providing protection for artists such as Virgil and Horace, and in return, receiving the social prestige of supporting how those artists articulated peace and stability. This lasted for centuries until the 20th century, when shifts in social structures changed that paradigm. And basically, on the one hand, growing middle classes didn't know how to show support or appreciation of the arts, so they just focused on buying contemporary art. On the other hand, new mass audiences demanded a democratization of culture. These two changes led to new models of patronage, namely patronage as private contribution, think of the Guggenheims, or as publicly funded support, such as on the model of art foundations or corporate sponsorships. For this reason, contemporary patronage models usually take the form of corporate sponsorship, cultural philanthropy, corporate funding of the arts, funding art for public places, or new venture philanthropy. So in the contemporary world, patronage is less about master-servant relations than about partnership, collaboration, in the pursuit of shared goals. Patronage is a form of cultural criticism and understanding. Patronage is a long-term strategy for artistic development, making a creative space that enables an artist to develop artistically without the fear of scaring off collectors. Patronage invests in place. It allows artists the financial stability to make art for audiences that are not mere financial speculators. In this way, patronage allows artists the freedom to make art beyond the purpose of generating sales. It gives them the freedom to speak to and for their worlds. Patrons provide resources that open up creative space. That is, the patron believes that over time, the artist's work will be recognized for what it is. Patronage is an act of belief that offers freedom and which is future-oriented. So here, patronage generates reception for an artist's work that embodies new social visions. It develops the audience and the artist over time. And this is why patronage is more than simply check writing. It is about conversation. It is about honest feedback, question and answer style discussion for artists and audiences. The upshot here is that patronage is not solely about the artist, it develops the audience, who also is now liberated from wealth and distribution systems that suggest only those with wealth can buy art and talk about its meaning. So patronage as a critical role opens the conversation democratically for all members of a society. New arts initiatives, public and private support for arts foundations, and the integration of arts into education, politics, and leisure, for instance, are vital to a democratic society, for it is here that we learn to think critically, to exercise our freedom, to understand experimental visions of the world. And we do this without social boundaries that we now consider traditional. Awareness and appreciation of the arts is not about promoting new commodities for either the artist or the patron. Rather, it is about the importance of art as communication, as critical insight, and new understandings for an evolving culture in order to enhance local pride, a sense of identity, and boosting the image of a place. For instance, to create sustainable growth, not only in tourism and culture, but in any sector of Newfoundland and Labrador, because nobody wants to invest in a place that is neither thought-provoking nor engaging, there must be continuity in developing quality cultural activities and the development of the requisite patronage infrastructure. For this reason, patronage is important because it develops public interest and appreciation for the arts, which directly develops a society that encourages a healthy push for diversity and experimentation, local community, from entrepreneurship to community building. Under the patronage model, artists are working citizens deserving of job opportunities in the growth of our communities and culture. Now, contemporary patronage has three overarching forms: publicly funded support, corporate collections, and partnerships. Corporate collections offer a prestigious image to their clients, but they can also be commissioned works in public spaces, such as temporary sculpture parks. Partnerships is where businesses can act not only as sponsors, but as consultants, helping artists and institutions develop their programs. Corporate sponsorship today makes less than 10% of the budgets of art institutions and foundations. They are also volatile and short-term. Corporate and public funding is crucial to offer stability of employment and community access, fostering diversity, experimentation, and enactments of our freedom to think and create. Ultimately, the role patrons play in development of the arts is principal to the development of culture. However, it is also a sign of social awareness, of an integrated civil society where all members support, communicate, and react to creative thought. So patronage is thus a catalyst that drives the growth of the arts and ultimately many aspects of our communities. Now, these ideas about patronage lead to my thoughts about philanthropy and corporate philanthropy in particular, because while I can argue abstractly for the value of the arts, it doesn't help convince businesses to give. The businesses I have in mind here are anything from local community businesses to Costco. This is who I'm talking to. So philanthropy, one definition of philanthropy is an unconditional transfer of cash or other assets to an entity, or a settlement, or a cancellation of liabilities in a voluntary, non-reciprocal transfer. So it is precisely not an explicit exchange of value between two parties. Rather, it is a transfer of wealth from one to another. Paul Godfrey argues, not that Paul Godfrey, argues corporate philanthropy should be encouraged for 4 main reasons. The first is that corporate philanthropy can generate positive moral capital among communities and stakeholders. 2, moral capital can provide shareholders with insurance-like protection for many of the firm's idiosyncratic intangible assets. 3, this insurance-like protection contributes to shareholder wealth. 4, all of this creates a path from corporate social responsibility to corporate financial performance. So one clear way to encourage corporate philanthropy is to encourage strategic philanthropy, and that is, how can a business further its strategic interests while giving away resources with nothing apparent in return? Well, although the firm receives no tangible, explicit, or discrete exchange of value, philanthropy generates strategic assets. These would be reputation, brand loyalty, employee commitment, positive action with legislative bodies, and the development of the firm's business environment. Strategic philanthropy is context-specific. It depends on and reinforces place. For example, how particular philanthropic acts are perceived in Bonavista may differ with how they are seen in St. John's. It's all about the place. Strategic philanthropy develops a sense of place by giving and responding to meanings of a certain area. In doing so, strategic philanthropy is a form of place building that develops this insurance-like protection. That is to say, the insurance involves the mitigation of negative assessments when bad acts occur. It grants firms some forgiveness when they mess up, because despite messing up, they have still shown that they are invested in the value and the meaning and the character of the place. And with such insurance, a company can weather stupid acts. For this reason, corporate philanthropy is ongoing and tied to a place. It helps a firm to be seen as engaged, or help to be engaged, interested, and genuinely concerned with place. Strategic corporate philanthropy, therefore, provides a business with intangible value and protection while providing a link between corporate social responsibility and its financial performance. Now, place building. Corporate philanthropy extends even further. Because it is context-specific, it relies on a strong sense of place. Place building is intrinsically tied to corporate philanthropy. Place building as an idea was originally developed to assess corporate social responsibility and to explain to what degree an organization values and invests in its geographical and cultural location. Place is therefore a key feature of patronage and of corporate philanthropy. Both geographically and socially, what begins as undifferentiated space becomes place as we get to know it better and endow it with value. The geographer, Yifu Tuan, holds that, I quote him, "The ideas space and place require each other for definition. From the security and stability of place, we are aware of the openness, freedom, and threat of space, and vice versa. Furthermore, if we think of space as that which allows movement, then place is pause," he says. "Each pause in movement makes it possible for a location to be transformed into place." So place here is defined as both geographical and social, and it depends on the meanings individuals and groups give to a certain space. Place takes on the meaning of the events that occur there. The descriptions of places derive from human goals, values, and histories. Places have historical and shared meanings that are held by a social collective and which endure. So place building depends on social engagement, commitment, and positive actions. Any community engagement, from participatory to technocratic, represents practices of place building. But the upshot of community engagement that relates to place building is that it tends to develop economic relations, social relations, ethical behavior, and geographical, built or natural geography, geographical environments. When we do any of these things, we act upon beliefs and values that motivate engagement strategies. Not surprisingly, all firms will have a view about how they see themselves in relation to place and the meanings they give to place. And this view influences how a business defines its goals and its contributions to a place. There are two types of views with corporations. One that sees the firm and its success as involved and interdependent with its place, and the other that sees it independent of place. Firms seeing themselves as place independent, as not tied to that place, basically satisfy their own goals and see a place as a resource. The place serves the firm. These organizations view their primary responsibility to their shareholders, not to the places in which they do business. They focus only on corporate financial performance and don't consider the intangible effects of corporate social responsibility or philanthropy. Here, the only contributions to place building are job creation and tax revenue, without much concern for the well-being of the place, of the people in those jobs, or the development of the business environment. Donna Wood offers a model of place building that focuses on 3 principles of corporate social responsibility. Her first point is the principle of legitimacy, where society grants legitimacy and power to business. A business has a certain role in a society that is respected, but in the long run, those who do not use power in a manner which society considers responsible tend to lose it. See our premier. Corporate philanthropy shores up this problem by engaging in place. Secondly, the principle of public responsibility. This means that businesses are responsible for outcomes related to their areas of involvement with society. Business is not incidental to a place. It inhabits a place and is obliged to invest in the meanings, culture, and values of that place, if only by respecting them. And thirdly, the principle of managerial discretion states that managers are moral actors, which cashes out to mean that within corporate social responsibility, firms are obliged to move towards socially responsible outcomes as best they can. These principles rely upon strategic corporate philanthropy, providing a model of support for culture and the arts that is integrative, interdependent through a shared interest in the values, ideas, activities, and people that create the place they're in. Strategic corporate philanthropy makes for not only good business, but for solid place building in the strongest possible terms. Seeing as how business concerns tend to be the last holdout, this argument would suggest that if we value place and the places that we build, then there is every reason to support long-term strategic corporate investment in the arts. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I am very pleased to be here tonight as part of the panel. I'm speaking on the role of not-for-profits in creating cultural destinations. And my presentation is going to be based on Elliston as a case study, and it relates to what has happened in Elliston over the last 19 years. But as I stand here and I see Edith Sampson of the Coker Foundation and Jim Muller of Trinity Historical Society, this could be done by any of the not-for-profits in this region. There's a very, very strong base. And I will relate it to Elliston. If Edith was there, she would have, the Coker Foundation would have done the same in Port Union and Trinity Historic Society in Trinity, as did the Bonavista Townscape here in Bonavista. So there's lots of really strong not-for-profits, but I have the honor and pleasure now of talking about Elliston, my passion. And just a little bit of background, I guess. Elliston, prior to the COD moratorium, employment in the community was fisheries related. Either at the plants or through the harvesters. We had a population of 533, and the businesses in the community was, you know, as normal, 3 general stores, a little gas bar, a takeout, and a Pepsi distributor. But then the COD moratorium came, and those of us living in the community saw people leaving, young families with 4 and 5 children leaving, and you talked about how awful it was, and then you went around on your daily business. It wasn't until a few years after the moratorium that the town had to actually turn off its street lights that it hit home. And it was that into darkness that brought to everybody that your community is in danger. And that's when there was a call to people to come forward. So the lights go out, and we made the national news. So there was a little town in Newfoundland that made the national news because its lights went out, which wasn't great. So Tourism Ilston was formed as a mandate, as it relates to that. We came together as a group, a not-for-profit group, and the mandate was to promote the economic sustainability of the community through the advancement of its cultural and natural resources, resulting in an enhanced quality of life for its residents. So we wanted to improve the life for the people there, but also to create an environment where people would come and invest. So the very first thing we did is, what do we have? And of course, here in this region, if it's not fishery, it's tourism. And we felt we had a lot to offer in that area. And we got together in a little town hall, and we had the walls plastered from one end to the other, what we felt we had as strengths in that little community. And these are the ones that we came up with that we felt we could start building a tourism industry on, simply because it was unique. And nobody else had some of these. Built heritage, yes, all of the region got built heritage. But some of these were very much, we felt, unique to us, and that's what we wanted to start building on. And we started with, out of all of these, what we just had a consultant there not long ago, and he called the lowest common denominator, the lowly little root cellar. And you wouldn't believe some of the comments we got when we start saying that we were going to create a tourism industry on the root cellar. And it was very interesting, but that's where we started. And we started there because it was unique, it was authentic, and it was something that we felt there would be interest in. And we started off with, research. We researched all over, actually, to see if there's anyone else with root cellar capital, for one thing, and if anyone was doing anything with the root cellars they had. And we couldn't find anything. If they had them, they weren't doing anything. So we researched them, we cataloged them. We had 135. We lost, in 19 years, we've lost 2 root cellars, unfortunately. But that's not bad in 19 years. We've built a few more than we lost. So it's 133, and we restored 42 of those through the support of a COA and BTCRD over 2 years. And then in 2000, we got really brave and declared ourselves the root cellar capital of the world. And we felt with that, we had to come with a theme. So we thought we would start building the industry on the subsistence theme. So everything we did would have to relate back to that theme. So we felt we had a unique branding, and we were very fortunate that we were in a region with a critical mass. We weren't just a little community of 300 people by itself. We were with Trinity, we were at Port Union, we were with Bonavista, all of which had a wealth. Just some pictures here. The other thing we had that we really felt was unique and we were proud of is the puffin colony. We had a provincial bird sanctuary in Ilston for years, and one of the things there is a puffin colony. And the closest lands view of puffins in North America, so we're told. And so we felt we should build on that as well. So then that's a picture of the minister at one time, and we always put that one in there because the puffins lined up so perfectly behind her. They were going to use it for their magazine. I don't know if they ever did or not, but I've been using it ever since. And just some photos of our puffins there. And these are just taken with little digital cameras at the site. So it's a fabulous site. So we wanted to bring the two together, and we did that with our first year. We came together in 97. We had our first festival that summer in 98, and then we've now had 18. The Bird Island Puffin Festival. It's a week-long event, and it's basically, we say the whole community becomes a volunteer during that week. And with the festival, we still bring the subsistence theme to that. It's based, like all festivals, there's food and music and arts, but we look at local produce. The food is prepared in traditional way during our summer festival. Friday, for example, is fish day. So if you come on a Friday, you'll get fried fish with scrunchions, you'll have fish brews, you'll have fish cakes. But if you come on Saturday and Sunday, you're going to have the biggest jigs dinner that's cooked up in Newfoundland. For 2 days, we do jigs dinners. And for that, we celebrate our cellar in that we bring vegetables out of our cellar for those 2 days. So we store vegetables in the fall of the year, and we bring them out in July for our festival. And so we build on our theme in that way. When we started our first festival, we had absolutely nothing in the park. We had tents, and since then we've created a fabulous venue in there that we can now use for many things. And this has taken many years, you know, sometimes 1 and 2 structures at a time, but now we do have the facility there. And as a result, in 2009, we did have the venue, little experience with it, festivals as well, and we started the Roots, Rants and Roars Festival. And it's now ranked as one of the top 10 culinary festivals in Canada. Actually, I went in before I came. I said, now I better make sure of that before I say it. So I went in and Googled, and it was the first one came out as #1 out of 10. So I was proud of that. And again, it's focused on food and entertainment. But this time we look at it a little different in that it's local produce, but it's now prepared in more contemporary ways. So our summer one is traditional, our fall one is contemporary. Entertainment, and it's a celebration, of course, of all we have: food, culture, land, and sea. And these are just some images. We have a partnership with the college in Roots, Rants and Roars. All the food is prepared here. We have chefs, international and national chefs coming from all over. All of our top provincial chefs, Rory McPherson there. That's Chuck. Oh my gosh, I got Chuck's name going. Hughes, thank you. I don't know. Chuck is there. He was there. Some of the food for the fall festival. Jeremy Charles there in the background. The food hike is what's really, really the highlight, I think, of the 2 days. You just hike along the coast and enjoy food through the food tents that are set up all over. And, you know, families come out and really enjoy the day. And here we're linking it all together with that's the walk down to the puffin site where the puffin colony is. We have traditional gardens going down there that we plant every year with vegetables, and just up from that we have root cellars. So it's all, we can bundle it together right there. And just enjoying the day and the evening and the beach. 2 years we've had people swimming in the ocean. It's been that beautiful in September. Last year, July was freezing. We were in there in our winter clothes for our summer festival, and in our fall festival they were in the ocean. So there's something happening. Yeah. They were out with you. Yeah. And that's on top of a root cellar there during the fall festival. And the other thing that we really had, that we had 3 things that we felt were top priorities that we wanted to start with. And the other was a memorial to the sealers. And Ilston was the community that lost the most lives in the Newfoundland sealing disaster. And we felt we needed to do something in the memory. And in 2009, a subcommittee formed from Tourism Ilston. That subcommittee went on to become the Ilston Heritage Foundation. And the role of that was one thing, one goal only, and that was to erect memorial to all sealers who lost their lives. And now we do have, open in June, the committee formed in 2009, and we wanted something for the 100th anniversary in 2014. And in June 19, 2014, we opened the John C. Crosby Sealers Interpretation Center. And that was quite an accomplishment in the 5 years. It's a beautiful state-of-the-art facility. It's an exhibit area, a beautiful art room. The statue, and the statue is of a father and son from Ilston that froze to death in each other's embrace, and that's how they were found, and that's what the statue represents. And the one to the right is the one that was taken this last winter. A photographer here, Eric Abbott, took that photo, and it captured so well what we were trying to capture. So the Home from the Sea, which is now the Home from the Sea Foundation, it was a local initiative, again, grassroots. It expanded to a provincial committee. After 2 years, it was recognition by the local committee that in order to make this happen, it had to go larger. And a patron was identified, the Honorable John C. Crosby. As a result, he went and got 2 other gentlemen, Chris Collingwood and Leo Power, and they chaired a funding campaign. As a result, $2.7 million was raised, and we now have that there, and we got support as well from the province, from the federal government, from private sponsors, and through fundraising. Built heritage, we've also restored buildings and put them to use. The Orange Hall in 2006 to your left, on the right, that's it restored and is now Nanny's Root Cellar Kitchen. The James Ryan building, that's what it looked like in 2008 to the left. We restored it. It's now the Illiston Adventure and Visitor Information Center. It's a craft store and information center. And the second level is a community museum. But unfortunately, since Igor, our stairs were destroyed going to the second level, and we haven't been able to open the museum. But we're hoping to get that done right now. Actually, we got a funding proposal in place now. And that's just another little store that we got in waiting for a little business to go in. And we've restored like flakes, and we got the hiking trails. We also developed the Little Catlana to Mabley Trail and the Klondike Trail. And this is, again, a good example of regional support. One thing I'd like to emphasize in this is that we very, very much work as a region. And Jim chairs a trails committee for this region. And this trail work happens through there. And we have a representative on there. And this year now, the Little Catlana to Mabley Trail was also destroyed during Igor, but that's one now that's going to be restored this year. So, and the trails are bringing more and more people to this region. And we also got 29 interpretive panels throughout the community, and they tell the story of Illiston, the history of Illiston. It's all, it's got original artwork, original poems, and stories all throughout. Sealer's Interpretive Path. How much longer do I have, Mike? Oh, okay, I'm going to talk really fast now. So I guess getting down to what it's all about is developing that environment for private investment. How does it happen? It's a long-term commitment, I can tell you that. It's something that takes time. And you have to have a unique branding, I think. It has to be unique, but you have to fit in with the region that you're in. It has to be a cluster. Not every little community can become a destination, and that's something that I think needs to be emphasized throughout. And years ago, Dr. Claire Dunn came here, and one of the things he talked about was clustering and how important it was that you had a cluster together that could make an industry. And we are fortunate in this region that we have that. But we have to be unique within that and add to that cluster. We have two major festivals. We got the Interpretation Center. We got a puffin site with interpreters. We got a visitor information center now. We got a beautiful municipal park and infrastructure that enables us to do lots of more things. Social enterprise, and it doesn't happen easily. Like first when we started, we had hoped that private investment would come very quickly after we started developing some things. It didn't, because there was still a risk there, and people didn't know yet if we had the visitors coming that would support that. So we started ourselves as a not-for-profit with a social enterprise. The first thing that went into Illiston was the Illiston Adventure Craft Store. Went into Illiston was Nanny Hayley's at that time. Root Cellar Kitchen was a private-public partnership in that we restored the building, we owned the building, and we actually, for the first 3 years of operation, didn't charge any rent or anything to someone come in and operate a restaurant from there until it got on its feet. So for 8 years, we operated that as a private-public partnership. This year, actually, we are now taking it over as a social enterprise because the operator that was there has decided he's not operating this year. We started a new public-private partnership with Tuckamore Discoveries in development of visitor experiences. But as a result of that, we now have the businesses in Illiston now are no longer the ones that were there. Every one of them are gone that I had identified first in the presentation. But now every business in the community is tourism related. We have 2 B&Bs, 5 cottages and efficiency units, 2 vacation homes, 3 craft stores, 1 general store, 1 restaurant, 1 takeout. We have a local jam maker, and we have a private tour operator that's operating some tours in the community. So everything now, and there's more employment within the industry community, directly in the community, than there has ever been. And there's community pride. We made it, we made the national gain, I got to tell you that. But this time it was when we declared ourselves Root Cellar Capital of the World. So it was negative first, and then it was positive. So we're really happy about that. We approximately now have 20,000 visitors that visit our puffin site last year. There are challenges, big one around volunteers and commitment. There's limited resources, as all of us in the not-for-profit look at, human and financial. There's a time commitment that's unbelievable for volunteers. And you have to keep motivated volunteers. For 19 years, we've done a festival, and we've got volunteers. We're very, very fortunate. We got a core group, but it's very challenging. Succession planning is difficult because you have lots of people that will volunteer, but there's not many will take on that leadership role and commitment that's needed at the leadership team level. And what our last consultant said, one of our challenges is that we do have a wealth of resources and opportunities, and the challenge for us, which is so true, is to stay focused, because at one meeting we're in 20 different directions. And elements of success, and I'll clue up there. It's very much a grassroots initiative, so there's ownership, and I think that's so important. You have to have that ownership because you'll work like the devil to make it happen. You have to have that champions at that level. There has to be community buy-in. You have to have the support from the community. Local, regional collaboration and partnerships essential at the community level, and as I mentioned, at the regional level, which is a real strength in this area. There has to be a common vision, and that's one thing too. Like the whole community, you have to have that common vision, and it has to feed into the larger. Supportive partners. We would not have been able to do it without our partners. ACOA and BTCRD have been phenomenal to us. I can't thank them enough. Canadian Heritage has been a fabulous supporter of our festivals, the historic sites with some of our buildings, the EDMO. It's been a tremendous support. We've built on uniqueness and authenticity. I think that was very, very important. It's long-term planning. We always have a long-term plan that we're following. And if I had to choose one from all of that, perseverance. So thank you very much.
I'll start the timer when the screen is up. I need every second. Start. And I've got a little alarm there. Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank the Harris Center Memorial for inviting me to take part in this panel. As was my introduction, my name is John Norman. I'm Chief Operations Officer for Bonavista Living, Bonavista Creative. And I guess kind of to move on from the earlier presentations, building on Marilyn specifically, I want to talk about the groundwork that's put in to some of these communities in this area that make it more appealing for private investment. So what does this group of companies do? Bonavista Living and Bonavista Creative is really a unique investment into the historic landscape of Bonavista, the community of Bonavista. The core aims of the company are to restore and preserve the existing built heritage of the community, of which there's about 1,000 heritage structures in our inventory, systematically protecting and capitalizing on those heritage resources, safeguarding intangible skills surrounding local heritage carpentry, and of course, and most importantly in my mind, creating a more livable community for all through the revitalization and reuse and redevelopment of our existing assets. This is part of a presentation from a Calgary conference I was in. I think we all know where we are, so I can move right on from that map. Just to touch a few slides on Bonavista, where we are here tonight. It is one of North America's oldest communities, one of the 3 oldest communities on the continent, permanently settled by the 1630s, 1640s, seasonally settled, we know, by the 1580s. So there's a tremendous history here. And of course, it all started with Cabot in 1497. So in early Newfoundland, of course, the economy was driven by the fishing class and the merchants. And that's where Bonavista was. Its economy was built on the fishery, and it was for over 250 years, and in many ways still today, the fishing capital of Newfoundland. So this early economy, based around the fishery, a very successful economy, afforded the opportunity in the community to bring in master builders, architects, that really resulted in the development of a Bonavista vernacular, a style that's unique to the community, a construction style. And this craftsmanship can be seen throughout the community today in almost every neighborhood. And if you're like me, you can go around and just by looking at the rain caps on the windows, tell who built the home. Don't expect you all to do that, but maybe after the presentation. A couple of archival photos on the style, the elegance that Bonavista was known for hundreds of years. Unlike many outport communities, the architectural style was very embellished, very elaborate. In a lot of Newfoundland outport, windows, for example, were very simple, very plain. In Bonavista, always it was known for large rain caps, decorative brackets. It was a very unique style in and of itself, not often seen outside of St. John's. And Now I want to touch on the groundwork. So again, reflecting on what Marilyn Coles-Hayley talked about in Elliston. We are a private corporation, Bonavista Creative, Bonavista Living, and the Workshop. And we have invested in Bonavista, like other private businesses, based on the groundwork that's been done here for decades. In Bonavista, we had in the 90s economic challenges, to say the least, surrounding a slowdown in the fishery, among others, out-migration and so on. And the Historical Society and Bonavista Historic Townscape Foundation was formed as a result. And what this organization has done, outside of simply successfully attaining millions of dollars in government funding through BTCRD, ACOA, and others over the decades, is the repurposing and really taking inventory and revitalization of the town through its built heritage, through its assets. The Orange Hall here, the largest wooden hall in North America, almost 2,100 square feet, 5 stories, restored by the Historical Society and Townscape Foundation. The Keogh Shop, a great story. This building once stood at Bonavista Harbor, where the OCI plant is today. It was slated for demolition. And the Historical Society and Townscape Foundation simply couldn't allow it. Through the Church Street Development Program, they identified gaps on the old Main Street, the downtown core, and felt that a relocation of this 1840 structure could fill a gap and create a business opportunity for private investment. And so it has today. The Garrick Theatre, I think really the gem in the crown of the Bonavista Historic Townscape Foundation. It represents millions of dollars of private and government funding. And to me, it is the key to the revitalization and long-term sustainability, longevity, and vitality of Church Street and Bonavista. Also the oldest operating theater in Newfoundland, I should point out. One of the main initiatives that helped us reach that critical mass that Marilyn touched on in Bonavista specifically was the HPIP program, another undertaking of the Historical Society and Townscape Foundation. It was a historic properties investment program that saw dozens of buildings throughout the community restored through very wealthy at the time grants that supported property owners, businesses, and homeowners to redevelop the exterior of their homes, restore them. Just some commercial properties, some homes around the town. Sorry, can you grab my water underneath my chair? I'll just flick. Thanks a lot, Marilyn. Marilyn and I carry on like that all the time. There's no assault. A collage of what's been done by the Historic Townscape Foundation. I mean, it really is amazing. But that said, about 1,000 historic structures in the community. The inventory right now, before we started our work with Bonavista Living, Bonavista Creative, 126 buildings restored. So we're looking at about 12% of the heritage-built landscape in the community done. So what an opportunity. We had reached critical mass. Major investment had been infused by private and public funds, mostly public funds at the time. And we sought to capitalize on that. We know that our built heritage creates a unique sense of place. That's been a phrase used and become very popular over the past number of years. And Bonavista and the region has it in spades. And with our group of companies, our family, we hope to spur economic regeneration and inspire imaginative new developments in these historic neighborhoods. And you see the logos of our companies below. So the company Bonavista Living and Bonavista Creative, with its varied long-term goals, operate very much in a complementary fashion to not only foster new enterprise that will enhance the Bonavista region, but also simply restore the buildings. We've seen in many cases where a building is restored and it lays dormant, waiting for someone to come. We really want to capitalize on what has been done and move on from there. So Bonavista Living specifically has acquired residential properties throughout some of the charming historic neighborhoods of Bonavista. And we chose those properties based on their architectural and historical significance, as well as their placement within these charming neighborhoods. And for me personally, the level of threat in which they're under. If I see a wrecking ball or a bulldozer coming towards something, I jump out in front and try desperately to write a small check to save it. And here we go. Just a small collection of some of the residences that have been acquired by Bonavista Living and are in various stages of restoration inside and out. So what are these properties going to be used for? Various things. They will be vacation homes, B&Bs, accommodations, affordable housing units, but many sold as private residences. And the goal is actually to have many of those residences year-round residences, if at all possible. Bonavista Living aims to inject new life into these once vacant properties through the preservation and redevelopment of the structures, thus awakening Bonavista's quaint and quiet laneways and fishermen's footpaths, while most importantly offering that quintessential outport space in a very authentic way. We are a living, breathing community. Just some before and afters of some properties that we've worked on, inside and out the Archibald Abbott House. You can see those decorative brackets that I was mentioning about Bonavista. Archival photo of the Henry Tremblett House, middle photo before restoration. And today, interior photos, very much intact. Much of the fabric of that home is in excellent condition. Frederick Moland's house, inside, condemned, I would say, by pretty much anybody, I think including the town. It was probably slated for demolition, not anymore. The Ford Tavern, my wife and I, Leanne, acquired this property when we found out it was going to be a bungalow soon enough. It's, as far as we know, Newfoundland's last standing house brothel, house tavern in rural Newfoundland. We know successfully dated to the early 1860s. Likely it's actually the 1840s. We're still working on some archival information surrounding the property. Russell Roll's house before and after. An artist from St. John's actually just moved into this property a few weeks ago. Thomas Randall House, anyone driving by will see a for sale sign on that property. Bonavista Creative. So with Bonavista Creative, we looked at the creative economy and the creative class specifically, and trying to recruit members of that creative class to Bonavista and the Bonavista region. And through this initiative, this division, Bonavista Creative, hopes to foster the growth of this creative class for the benefit of the region through the creation of unique commercial spaces offered at below market rates. We, at pretty much every turn, try to eliminate risk to make it very appealing for young and new entrepreneurs to come into the area. Some before and afters of Bonavista Creative, the Linthorne Shop, both commercial spaces in this building now occupied, a chocolate and ice cream manufacturer in one, and a high-end craft and art gallery in the other. Both opened last week. The Lewis Fifield Shop, I apologize for the artist rendering there, but that's what it's going to look like by the end of the summer. The left photo is what we actually purchased. The Levi Templeman House, the day we purchased it, an artist rendering of more to what the house used to look like. And today, that shop will open, commercial space on the main floor. The business owner occupying the second and third floors as a residence, a soap manufacturer that exports around the province, opening in a few days. The George Templeman House, circa 1872, day of purchase, and probably a few weeks ago, it's a bit more done now. This, in a matter of a week or two, will be the new Boreal Diner, owned and operated by the owners of Fix Coffee. Young couple here tonight, relocating again to Bonavista, exactly what we want to see coming to fruition. Young professionals, entrepreneurs, relocating and taking the risk to try rural Newfoundland, where some of the risks have been limited or eliminated altogether for them. And then finally, the Bonavista Creative Workshop. Of course, we do a tremendous amount of built heritage restoration within our holdings, our 41 properties and growing, although we have slowed because the inventory is so large and we do have to restore these. The Bonavista Creative Workshop works on a 50-50 basis where we produce 50% of the product, the windows, the doors, the moldings, and so on, for our own internal use, and then the other 50% approximately for export around the province, and as well some opportunities in Nova Scotia, and our first export going out to Toronto this fall. So the workshop brings together a collection of local, highly skilled heritage carpenters, specializing in the traditional wooden window and door construction, and these are both for residential and commercial application. And this is really building again on something that's very authentic about Bonavista, not really just injecting a business for the sake of having a business. What did we do? We purchased an old carpentry shop from the early 1900s that was purpose-built for window and door manufacturing. That was opened by the Russell family and actually originally funded through Senator Bradley and his window manufacturing facility in the earlier 1900s. And today, 2 of the 7 employees that work in this facility year-round are the grandsons of the original owner. Their grandfather, their father, both well-known window and door makers, and now the grandsons following in their footsteps, relocating to Bonavista full-time to take on those careers. So that said, through these operations, Bonavista Living and Bonavista Creative hopes to enhance the livability of the community, growing the tourism industry, but creating a better place to live. We all know that a great place to live is automatically, in many cases, going to be a great place to visit. And through that, we developed the tremendous built landscape of Bonavista. And there you have it, my contact information. Under time. Thank you.
I gotta put my timer on now. I think they put the fastest speaker last for a reason. So while she's getting that set up, I would just like to say to College of the North Atlantic, we actually have one of our employees, Melissa Walters, competing right now at the National Skills Competition in Moncton. And we just want to say this is her 2nd year working for us. And it's really amazing to have someone go through the college program here and actually come back with the skills that as tourism operators, we need them to have. That's unbelievable. It has been a very hard struggle to have that in the culinary industry here. And I really wanted to commend the college for that. And if Jamie's still here, Melissa loves you. She keeps saying that to me. So my name is Marieke Gow. I am the manager of the Artisan Inn and Twine Loft in Trinity. And this was a business, we're actually in our 25th year this year, and it was started by my mother, Tina Gow, 25 years ago. So she's right there. So John and I have some things in common. We both have a boat as our business logo, and our boat came first, but we also bring our mothers to our presentations. So this has actually kind of become an iconic picture of the Bonavista Peninsula. I feel very privileged that I actually get to live in this photo, as does Jim Miller. His house is there. But my office window is actually in the red building right on the water, and the amount of people we see stop or pull over on what's known as Powell's Point to take this photo, the amount of bus tours that are forced to stop by the people in them who absolutely need that photo is unbelievable. And it's become so iconic that it's been used in the New York Times. When USA Today reported on the weathermen being arrested in Newfoundland last year, it was a photo of that shot that was used, and travel guides are using it as well. But the area didn't always look that way, and we kind of have a 25-year story of how we got to this point. So this is kind of what Trinity looked like back then, and I just realized too that this might not be the presentation I was supposed to be presenting. I had the flu yesterday. I submitted my presentation at 1:30 in the morning and resent it later, but I think this might be the old one. Nope, that's absolutely fine. So we had bought, or my parents had bought in the 1970s, a property called Gover House in Trinity. And it didn't look like that when they bought it, but unfortunately we didn't have access to any of the photos before the restoration. It was just to be meant as a vacation home for us. But the big problem was there was no water that came with the house. So we were quite limited in how we could use it. And my parents eventually, my father taught at Memorial University, and he really needed his 4 children to get out of his hair during the summer times when we were off school. So my mother decided that we come out and camp there. But eventually the building next door came for sale and had a well. So my parents bought a well that came with the building. And I know that sounds really funny, but when you see the building, you'll understand that really we bought a well and we didn't really know what else to do with what we had. So the original plan was potentially to take it down, but someone pointed out to my parents that they now actually own 2 of the 5 oldest buildings in Trinity, and perhaps they should do something with it. And my mother was inspired to re-enter the workforce. She'd had 4 children and had been out of the workforce from working for quite a while. And she figured having a bed and breakfast, 2 bedrooms, would give her a chance to do a job that wasn't a 9 to 5. We all joke now that she has a 5 to 9 now. I don't know why people think getting into tourism is going to be easier. And the reaction from people, and I think one of my favorite quotes that was said around the area at the time was, "Mrs. must have more money than brains to think that anybody would ever want to stay here." And you have to understand too, this was before Rising Tide Theatre existed. This was before the historic sites were offering kind of that tourist accessibility and what they were. So she was really banking on the magic of Trinity to draw people in. And people have to understand about my mother that she doesn't come from Newfoundland. She comes from the Netherlands. And instead of coming from a place that's shaped by the sea, she actually came from a place that was the bottom of the sea. She was one of the first people ever to be born in the polder, which was the reclaimed land. They actually built the dikes and pumped the ocean out there. So she's actually come from a place that literally has no history, which must seem so strange to a Newfoundlander, and we have hundreds of years of history. But this was actually a place that had the occasional shipwreck in your backyard, and there were seashells all over the place instead of soil, but the history is yet to be written. And she really remembered from her childhood going on a field trip, though, to a place called Arnhem. And if anyone's seen the movie A Bridge Too Far with Sean Connery, that's Arnhem. But there's an open air museum there that really had preserved traditional Holland lifestyle, and people could go there and experience that. And I actually too remember going there, I think at the age of 7, and that has always stuck with me as a memory of going through that town. So that is what she had going through her mind when she bought that property. And it came at a really good time because Trinity wasn't so much a fishing village, but more so a boat building village. And the picture actually to the bottom left is me in my pink rubber boots watching the boats being built and launched just right next to where our properties are right now. So we had a lot of very talented people in the area who could do woodworking. That is a picture to the right of Charlie Kelly hand making all of the windows that we needed for that business. So we also were able to, because it was the decline of the fisheries at that time, it was around 1992, the late 80s that we bought the property. 1992 was when we were kind of launching the B&B. We were able to get funding from the Historic Trust and also from ACOA, and it really wouldn't have been possible without the help from those two organizations. So what started off of this actually was turned into this, and that's how we launched Campbell House Bed and Breakfast. We also, so this is kind of some pictures mid-renovations. We didn't have any pictures accessible from what it really looked like inside. Just imagine that really rough one that John showed. And then we were able to turn the insides into this. The idea was we didn't want to transform something where we were charging people $5 or $10 just to look at something behind ropes. People could actually live it and breathe it, and it was their own living museum within a town that had been quite well preserved. We were also inspired because of the success of Campbell House of filling the rooms to fix up Gover House even more and build a bit of an extension in the back, and that's some of the work that was done on the inside there. It also coincided with the time of the internet, and my mom happened to be quite a techie at the time, and she actually wrote one of the first websites ever related to tourism in Newfoundland. She coded it herself, so she was actually able to bring Trinity to the world, and that's how we started to attract our international clientele. Then a few years later, we bought a twine loft that came with another property that was meant for us to live in after we had been booted out of Gover House because it was now too nice for us to stay in and we could rent it out to tourists. So it came with the shed, and my mother fixed it up. And then we were facing the issue. We had the guests, but they needed more to do. We wanted to be able to convince them to stay longer than one night. And at this time, you know, the Rising Tide Theater was coming up. They weren't doing shows all the time. There were some historic sites, but we really needed to have that draw. And it was actually our friend Pamela Morgan who had suggested we started to do a concert series at the Loft and some artist series. So what we started doing with that space is we brought in artists in residence who would live in a kind of a spare room that we'd have. They'd be working in that space. Our guests would go talk to them. They would offer them workshops. We had Jan Lecheen come and do fisheries workshops, knot tying workshops. Sorry, things are out of order what I'm talking now. Just the old slides. These are the some of the concert series that we did. They kind of started as kitchen parties. Actually, the once when they started playing, this is kind of when they originally started playing as a band. Before they got to the right is when they're in their knit caps. That's when they were just playing for beer and free leftovers. And to the left is when they started charging a little bit more. And Pamela Morgan, the Ennis sisters, come back every year. Eventually, though, we used to do that every Monday, but then the theater started getting enough people. They could do performances on Monday. But then the Garrick Theater came into being, and we had the Two Whales Coffee Shop, which was closing at 4. Could start doing concerts afterwards. English Harbor Arts Center. So for us, that wasn't a competition. That was a bit of relief because it meant that we could focus once again more on what we wanted to do and send people to do things there. So we were able to get away a little bit. We still do some concerts. We still have the original artwork that we sell and we represent those artists. But now we're really focused a lot more on the culinary arts sides of things. We have an open concept kitchen. People actually have the chance to dine in a shed. And it's about giving them that kind of fine dining experience with the casualness and the history of Newfoundland to it. And we try to also incorporate as much Newfoundland product as we can through the beverages and whatever ingredients we can. We aren't 100% local at this point. It's not quite possible for us at the price point that we're doing, but what we want to promote is anywhere you can go local and make sure that our staff are actually part of the stories that are being told to the guests. And so we try to kind of focus on telling the story of the food in the area through that. What else has happened through that time is we've had actually over 25 sets of guests buy or build property in the area based on a stay with us. Now, sometimes buying property can be quite expensive when you only want it for a weekend or two. So many of them have approached us to actually take on their property for management. So we get them up to a grade of 4 or 4.5 star higher of Canada Select. And we have our own, has to be with an ocean view, has to have certain kind of things. But the people that we're attracting to buy these properties have stayed with us and experienced the history, so they want to live in that history too. They don't want to build a house that's out of place. This is an example of the Whitlocks. It was a diplomat from Washington who ended up buying a property completely outfitted by furniture he's bought from Mike Patterson. They restored the outside to be like it was historically, and now when they're not around, we're able to rent this. So without us having to buy up the entire town, we're actually able to partner with people who want to do that, and they can afford to keep everything up to a level, and instead of us trying to constantly find the funds. It's almost like a reverse way that John's doing it. So it's kind of really interesting. So they're coming to us to manage where you're looking for businesses that you really want to invest in it. And we're able to put more bums in beds. So that means more people for our restaurant, but it means more people we can send to the not-for-profits that are around trying to make a go of it, and the other private businesses that are investing, including all the ones that John is just convinced to invest in up here. So what started out as Campbell House, this is now the entire inventory of buildings that we have. Some of them are owned, some of them are managed. Ones we actually bought, or we'd sold it, and the person said the condition of the sale was that we manage it as though we still owned it. So it was getting harder for us to describe what the business was called. It started out as a B&B, then it became the Inn when we had the dining room. And it wasn't until actually the New York Times coined us as a diffused hotel concept. And what that means is instead of us changing the landscape of a town by building a hotel that can house 26 to 30 people, we've actually managed to create a hotel without anyone really seeing it. There is no building called the Artisan Inn. Where those numbers are is representing where our houses are, where our guests are staying. They all come down to the Twine Loft to interact and have their meals. Our staff has grown from 2 people to 15 people. We have done economically better every single year that we've been in business. We've never had to actually cut back on staff on any single year that we've been operating. And now what we see, because we're focusing on accommodations and we're focusing on dining, we really do see it that it's our responsibility to be moving the visitor around the area. There has to be a really good partnership between private business as well as not-for-profit and the other people that are trying to make a go of it. So instead of us making a $200 or $300 donation to every single business, what I see is the impact is every single guest we have come in, they get about a minimum of a 10 to 20 minute check-in experience where we've actually written these guides for them, their color, their kind of editorial style, with the idea of having them be aware of everywhere that they can go on the Bonavista Peninsula. Trinity is not the destination for us anymore. It is a complete peninsula, and it's what the clusters that Marilyn was talking about. So we let them know about each of these areas. And then also, besides for the actual businesses, not-for-profits that are running, we're looking at the natural resources. We see this is our way to expand the shoulder season, because you don't need to have a hired staff member or a student working so someone can go do a hiking trail. And that's been bringing more people in. And what you see on the bottom right-hand side is actually, it's a card that we've made up. We have 2 of them. So we have this one and this one. But what we are finding is people do need something to put things in clusters. It wasn't being done at the time because it's very hard for people to get organized and get the funding. So we're actually using our own funds to use these cards. One is to tell people where all the hiking trails are in the area. The other one has shorthand driving directions to avoid divorce on the road. So people can get to pretty much every area there is. So, I mean, there's Port Rexton, Port Union, New Bonaventure, Trinity, Bonavista, the whole Route 238, Elliston. And we found that this has resulted in people either coming back from out of province, often for longer stays. We have a family that was there for 5 days last year, and they're coming back for 10 days this year. Like I said, we've had people who keep buying, but it's really moving the money around. And for us, we need every single business, every single not-for-profit to stay working. It's very much like an ecosystem. You remove one thing and things don't really work as smoothly. So that's kind of where we see our role with things right now. And I think that might be my last slide. Unfortunately, I had a really beautiful winter shot of Trinity there, but that was in the post-flu presentation. So this is what it looks like in a blizzard. So thank you very much. I don't know if I'm over time. I didn't see any numbers going up, so.
Well, that was a tour de force all around. Thank you, folks. Now it's your turn, and we did start a little late, so if we need to go a bit over, we certainly will. I'm Rob Greenwood, and delighted to be back in Bonavista. Opportunity now for questions, answers, discussion, debate. We, as Mike mentioned, have a regional workshop at Fisher's Loft tomorrow, and we still have room because we would love maximum participation from the region. Who's here from Memorial University? Put up your hand. Look around. So there's a lot of folks here who want to brainstorm about projects and ways we can work together. So please come tomorrow and put us to use. Who has thoughts on what we've just heard? Questions? Yes. And we'll get a mic to you. We'll get this mic to you. I never need a mic.
Nope.
My voice carries long distances. Restaurant tables. I think the whole room wants to hear me, but she doesn't seem to hear.
Your volume hasn't actually changed since they moved the mic. Thank you everyone for the presentations. It was amazing and super inspiring. I have to say, when I was driving down today, I was hit by the magic of Bonavista. And one of the things that really stood out to me as I was driving in, but also through your presentations, was that I think a lot of that magic comes from the amount of collaboration that's been happening in the region. And many of you spoke about that in your presentations. And I'm curious if you have any insight as to what has enabled that magic and that collaboration to happen in the region? And have there been any barriers or challenges along the way in facilitating that sort of collaboration?
Do you want a novel? Or? It's so interesting because, Marilyn and John, I've been seeing around different tables for years. I think when you have events like this, you kind of always have, I guess you can say, the winners coming out or the people who are working really hard. So I think you just have to force collaboration. I think it comes from passion. I think that everyone who's passionate about it doesn't give up on what they're doing. And if something doesn't work, a lot of people will just go and try something different. And I think that's kind of what's kept things going here. It's a very broad question for people who have been at it for a while.
And I guess one of the things as well.
Yep, it's working.
Okay. I guess one of the things as well is identifying initiatives that were very important to all of us. And I mean, there are many initiatives that we work on very closely. We're all working on a geopark initiative together. We're working on a cultural crafts initiative together. Over the years, we've gotten together for many things just for the college here with regard to programming and coming together and doing training. So it wasn't always that way. There were times when we all worked together individually, but it takes time, like everything. And I go back to Dr. Claire Dunn, and I know that was 21 years ago because I was pregnant at the time. So it was 21 years ago. And that was the first time I think that talking about working together as a cluster and in a region really came to the forefront. And I look around and many of the players that are here now were there then, believe it or not, 20 years ago. And it's been, an evolution over time, basically, is how I feel. I don't know.
I think also just as a challenge, I think sometimes it's hard for people to understand that when the spotlight's on one area in that cluster, it's not taking away from the other. So, you know, the way I see it is Bonavista has been getting an amazing amount of attention because of a lot of really hard work that's happening. That means that every room in Bonavista is going to fill up, which means that all those people that are calling that can't get a room in Bonavista are going to be trickling down the peninsula. The same way every time an article comes out about Trinity or anywhere else in the area, it's going the opposite way. So I think it's helping people understand that it's not about someone getting more attention, someone else's. If we can support everyone doing everything, you know, everyone's cup is going to runneth over pretty much. Yeah.
Others want to jump in? Good. Okay. Oh, and I didn't mention anybody viewing on the web. Feel free to submit questions or comments. Click on there, and we'll read them out in the session here live. Yep, right here in the middle.
Yeah, hi. Oh, thanks. I have a nonprofit in a small community called Dunterra, and I'm sort of a one-person operation down there. So it's inspiring to hear that you've all, you know, you work together. And I think when you're a one-person operation, you kind of have your head in the dirt and you don't really get to see out. So it's really nice to hear all this. And I think a challenge for me is, I mean, it's something I'm really excited about and I've been doing for a few years now, but we're in an area where it is really challenging. And I think it was Marilyn who said that it's not for all areas to have things. So I sort of think maybe that's the problem. I mean, it's been really successful, but it's extremely hard to get people to work or to get any work done or to get a contractor, or, you know, everything is hard where we are, which is down the Kings Cove kind of area. And yet we also want to participate and we want to be in dialogue. And I think, you know, I really enjoyed what you said, Marieke, about that you're trying to send people out to areas and that
You're actually on the sheet that says the 235. I have you listed there,
really?
and your
That's
phone
so
number
great.
and stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, again, like my head is in the dirt and I'm not really aware of so much because it really takes up all my time. And I also run an artist residency. So I do bring artists. I have 16 artists that come for 3 weeks each over the season. And you know, they're here to create work, but also to try to bring artists to the area. So I think a lot of what I've heard tonight is so in line with my thinking. And Jennifer, I was really interested in the way you sort of framed it all. And yet, you know, the dilemma remains for me, you know, do I close my doors? Do I move? Do I keep trying? I mean, now we're trying to work on a project that will bring more of us working together. But I guess maybe if it's a question, it would be, do you have any suggestions or advice for these smaller places, and how do we participate, or are we just really banging our head against the wall?
Wonderful comment and question. First.
I think probably the hardest part is finding the time. You need to talk to operators one-on-one and in person. And I think I remember you coming down to the Twine Loft to drop off brochures maybe 2 years ago. And it was after that I included you in the sheet. And I had a very similar conversation with John Joy, who's doing the Tuckamore Discovery Tours, that he's kind of going, okay, I've started the project, you know, this is what people have been saying they wanted, but I need the reaction. And I don't quite know what the solution is. I've been finding through working, I mean, I chair the legendary Coast DMO. I find the networking sessions through that has been actually really beneficial for getting people not just in the sub-region, but in all of Eastern Newfoundland to know who we are, and you're having those conversations. And I also think what you talked about like kind of picking up on that lowest common denominator of the route sellers, kind of what I've ended up doing with the Route 235, because I want to make that a whole loop, because I want to extend someone's stay. So now I talk about going to, you know, Dunterra, and I talk about going to Paul Dolks, but also, you know, the geology that I learned about on the tour with the Geo Society last year, that was helped by Port Union and John, going there, and then Grand Seduction being up in Tickle Cove. So it's about grabbing anything that you can get to put together something that makes it into a bigger destination, whether that be the Bonavista Peninsula or the Route 235. I'm going to stop answering all the questions.
Hey, John, I can't believe you.
That's because there's microphones everywhere. I didn't say anything about the Premier today. I guess again it goes back to, I don't know if I really need this. I speak fairly loudly, but oh, it's for the web. Okay. I think again it goes back to looking at the existing assets, taking inventory of what you have, like Marilyn touched on. What are those common denominators, the lowest common denominators that you can grab? I mean, we know as operators ourselves that the development or the speed of the development on the Bonavista Bay side has not kept up with the Trinity Bay side. But that being said, 20 years ago, Bonavista was not, I think I'm safe to say, a tourism destination, but by that time Trinity was. So you can't, it takes time, as everyone has already said, and it really takes passion and drive. I know you have that, so please don't close your doors. I also send people to your place too. It takes those, you know, initial investments, like the social club on that side, the development of the Kings Cove Trail out to Brook Point, and the development of the Geopark project. I mean, that has tremendous potential. Actually, some of the key sites are on the Bonavista Bay side. So it's just, you know, grabbing what you have and going with it. And then some of those operators like yourself will benefit. Yeah, but it is a waiting game sometimes.
Marilyn, your whole presentation focused on that. Something you'd like to add?
Well, I think it was covered fairly well, but I just want to add that you're very much within the cluster. When I say that, you know, a community, sometimes you're onto your own self sort of thing. You're not within a cluster, and you may have a couple of really good things, but it's not enough. But you are very much in a cluster because we are trying to all promote that loop. So it will happen. And as John said, it takes time sometimes, and we're all developing at a different pace. But I think the Bonavista Bay side actually is going to be wonderful, and I think it's going to happen there. And it would be great if the Bonavista Bay side could identify one initiative, something that everybody there could start pulling together on, and then it just goes from there.
Oh, sorry. I totally agree with what everyone's saying, and I don't mean to sound pessimistic or cranky, but I think a lot of our challenge is gathering people who might be interested. You know, it's that, and maybe that's just a town thing, but you know, that's a real struggle. Is community. I loved what you said about the root cellars and how you all work together, and you know, it feels like that's impossible in our area, and you know, it might be impossible, or it might be, like you say, trying to figure out what the thing is. And so it's not like we don't want or hear, or you know, there are some of us who are really keen. I just think it's a challenge in certain places, and it's hard to get your head around that you could possibly unify a community on a project other than a come home year. But you know, that's a passing thing, and it's very specific. We did have a come home year last year. There is no lasting thing from a come home year. It's great at the time, but it doesn't really go anywhere. And so anyway, really, I think I'm just trying to say that everyone was really inspiring, you know, in terms of how you've really created these amazing enterprises, social enterprises.
Sorry, now we're fighting over the mic. I think one of the point to that, Catherine, that I would mention is, I mean, looking at the geography itself of the area, looking at the Trinity Bay side, from the Trinity Bay area down through Trinity Bay North, Elliston, Bonavista, you're also looking at, in many cases, you know, a lot of larger communities, a lot of incorporated communities. I think it can be a little bit easier in some of those communities, though I don't want to really use the word easy, because nothing is ever easy. But it may be a little bit easier to start off that type of development because of that structure. And I see a lot of potential, as I've already said, on the Bonavista Bay side. I think there needs to be more cooperation between the towns that are located within these service districts, these smaller communities like Dunterra. I think if they really come together as an entity, it's one of my suggestions anyway. You, Jennifer, you're good. Marieke?
Sorry, I just, yeah, no, it's the two of us, right? But just thinking about that area where I sit on the Hike Discovery Board, we have just received funding to organize events to be happening at each of the main trails that we have that will be happening throughout the season. And Kings Cove is going to be one of them. So I'm just kind of curious if, I mean, the person who's going to be hired to organize that is going to want to work with business operators in the area. So there are a number of artisans out there. So maybe we make sure that that Kings Cove hike event is focused on the arts. Maybe it's a walk and paint event or something like that. So, you know, let's try to bring you, maybe we can bring some of the operators together, who the players, through that. So if you want to contact me, and I can make sure that when that happens, you get contacted.
Or use the chat.
I see another hand there in the room, over here on the left-hand side. We keep Taylor moving, I tell you. Or she keeps us moving, so it's only fair.
This question is for John, but I guess anyone else who has anything to comment, that would be great too. You were mentioning attracting and growing the creative class in Bonavista. I guess what I'm wondering is, what is the place for artists not necessarily looking to be entrepreneurs or like setting up a studio to sell their work or craft? I'm a visual artist. I graduated from Grenfell last year, and now I'm based in Glasgow, but I'll be moving back to Newfoundland in the fall. And rural practice is something I'm really interested in, and that's where my research lies right now. So how can we attract artists working like socially engaged practices and youth outreach that doesn't necessarily have a business edge to it?
So we have actually worked on that a little bit in Bonavista Creative. We do have a creative director, Ruth Weller, for Bonavista Creative. She is an artist herself. And she says herself, not all artists are business people, nor do they want to be business people. So we are in the construction phase now of a gallery space that we hope to develop an artist residency program around. I mean, I don't want to speak for Ruth, but we are trying to figure out exactly how to work this. We've been networking with various galleries in Newfoundland. We've been networking with the rooms and the provincial galleries, and really trying to figure out, just as you said, how to get artists out that don't necessarily want to open those galleries, how to get them into the schools. We've had some success in Bonavista in the past with the Art Smarts program with visual artists and sculptural artists, and just try to bring that up to the next level. So I would say we're not really there yet, but we're working on it. But to me, I'm not an artist, I collect art, but I don't know exactly how to do it. Ruth is really the champion of that particular project, and I would suggest contacting her, reaching out to her on our Bonavista Creative website. Well, there you go. She meets with everyone every day, so I'm not surprised. But that's as much as I can say right now. We know we want to get there, but quite frankly, for me, it's been easier to just get entrepreneurs into buildings, and again, to reach that critical mass, to have that level of activity within the town, to then move it to the next level of artists coming and going that don't necessarily just have galleries everywhere. Yep.
And I know there's people in the room also who may have thoughts on this, so feel free not to ask a question, but weigh in if you want to. Any other thoughts on the panel on this?
No, I think I know that, for example, the Coker Foundation is also working on an artist in residence program. So there's things happening in the whole region that would support that. I think the hope is that the environment that we do have, that we're hopefully creating, that will naturally attract artists, not just for businesses, but that we would like to have that creative community.
We're reaching that point now. That's kind of the main point.
Yes.
We're not there yet.
No.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be an art gallery that you're working with. I mean, you know, we started with having the art in the restaurants, but I mean, there's not one restaurant, I think, in our area that does not use its walls as an opportunity to promote and help artists sell. So I think that going through the peninsula, you know, if you don't want to be running your own gallery, there's lots of opportunities there.
Oh, I would say one other thing, and Ruth would be very perturbed if I didn't mention it. Last year, Bonavista, through Bonavista Creative, in conjunction with the Church Street Festival, actually ran the first annual Bonavista Art Walk, which had, I think, 15 or so different artists from around Newfoundland, mainland Canada, and Europe display works in pop-up spaces at no cost throughout the main street in, I think, 12 or 14 different locations. So that's, I guess, where we're hoping to go and where we're hoping to grow from this year. So stay tuned for developments on that.
Now, other comments on what we just had from else or other questions, thoughts, opportunities? turn it over the years. Yep, back here. Like to see us so the people online can hear.
Thanks to all the panelists. The theme of regional cooperation and collaboration is coming across quite strongly tonight. Hike discovery, the tourism loop planning and the geopark and et cetera. What is the next phase in that regional collaboration? How can communities in the region and the different sectors really capitalize on that and in moving forward to benefit the whole region?
I spoke last.
Oh man. I think one thing is keeping events like this going. That I think you made a great point of when we get in a room, you kind of lose focus sometimes because we're going in 20 different directions, and you have 1 hour out of your really busy day, that's what's also really hard. Is we live in a very strange place where you try to meet in the summer and everyone says, well, I'm too busy because I'm working. It's a 7-day-a-week kind of thing out here. Say, well, let's meet in the winter. And goes, well, no, I'm on vacation because I work 7 days a week. So it's really hard to everyone but John Norman. You should take one sometime for maybe 48 hours somewhere. It would be great. But I think doing events like this is really nice. It gives everyone a chance to listen to each other, and I think there is a lot of work that needs to be done. Actually, I think that John actually should take this because both John and Shane have been working really hard with the Bonavista Chamber of Commerce. You just wanted someone else to introduce that concept. No, we used to have regional economic development boards, and now we don't. And it's been trying to find a way to have the time and the resources to do this. So I'm going to hand that over to John.
Thank you for that introduction. I hoped we were going to get there, but I didn't want to put on my chamber hat unless someone else mentioned it. I also chair the Bonavista Area Chamber of Commerce. So we really do cover the entire region we're talking about here tonight: Dunterra, Kings Cove, Trinity Bight, all the way down and more. And we have been really pushing regional cooperation through lecture series, through the development of subcommittees in tourism, agriculture, fisheries, and so on. We really revamped our board recently. Just this morning, we had a funding announcement from ACOA that a data study, among other things that we were looking for to really have a baseline to work from, has been funded. So I think it's going to be a really good mechanism to move with the Chamber of Commerce on a go forward. We have excellent regional representation, not only just from geographically, but also representation from various sectors: private, not-for-profit, tourism, fisheries, small business, the whole gamut. I also think that one thing that should, in my hope, unite communities, organizations, businesses in the area, and it has in the recent months, would be, I don't want to say challenges that arise. I want to say emergencies, challenges that arise, or crises within your region, and we all come together. We are facing challenges, as is the province. We are facing challenges that the budget has brought on us, and we are working together as a chamber, as a region, to move forward with those, and to, again, harken back to the discussion around sustainability and longevity of the region, and how a lot of the base infrastructure that's in our region works as a regional body, as a network. And I think, as was mentioned in one of the presentations earlier, if you remove one or two pieces, I don't want to sound too dramatic, but the whole thing can really collapse if you remove a couple pieces. And I think the movers and shakers, some of which are up here tonight, but there's many also in the audience, they are aware of this and they work together on this. I think we're very like-minded in almost every issue we tackle. And I don't really know how to explain it and how we work together so well. We just do. It's a land of unicorns and rainbows. Come to the Bonavista Peninsula. Do you see me on camera? Move here. It's ideal. Yeah. There's wine. There's great food. What else do you need? I don't know, Marilyn, if you want to touch on that as well, with your immense background on economic development.
it's not much more, I don't think you can say on it. It's just that as you work more and more together, it becomes so common that you really do, you work as one. And, it takes working on initiatives one at a time, and it grows larger and it becomes seamless. It really does. And I think we're seeing that more and more. And I mean, even the college here that we're in tonight is such a regional body and such a community college. It really is. And it reaches out to the region that we're talking about very much. So, it goes down from those supports to the representatives we have from the funding agencies that come and sit among us, and to us working together all the time and sharing resources. Like for example, the Older Workers Program, I use Jim and Edith again, Trinity and Coker and Tourism Illiston, because we work together very closely on a number of initiatives. But like in the Older Workers Program, Coker, for example, put in the proposal and the workers came out to all three of us. But if we had an initiative such as a festival and we needed a couple more that Coker had, then they would come over with us for those few days. So it's that sharing all the time of not only, working on an initiative, but of resources as well that go back and forth among all the various groups, not just the three of us. It's a regional. Yeah.
It's a strange cooperation that you can't really explain.
But it evolves. I really think it's something that, you can't say it's going to happen. You have to get there.
Yeah. It has to happen organically.
Yes.
Can't force it. Other thoughts? Yep, right in front here with Mike. We'll have another one.
Okay. Thank you. Always inspiring to hear the three of you speak, and also you as well. Marilyn, you mentioned succession planning as part of maybe one of the challenges that you have. It is certainly a concern in the tourism industry, in particular with our not-for-profits, even in business, even in private sector business. We have an aging population. We have volunteers who are dwindling. We have volunteers who have burnout. And for the most part, tourism is made up of volunteers and the private sector. Volunteers contribute tremendously to the not-for-profit sector, to our heritage, our culture. We're trying to find a solution. We need to find a solution. I don't know what that is. I wonder if, and maybe John, you can speak to this in terms of the Chamber of Commerce and the Bonavista Living, and encouraging younger people to become involved in business, to become involved in community. How do you see the solution to the succession planning and to the volunteers? I know it's a big question. I know you might not have the answer, but maybe you've thought about it to some extent.
I have, yes. I think about it just for myself, for anybody else, for anyone involved with the Bonavista Historic Townscape Foundation. I say it quite often. There are key leaders in each organization, and what if, God forbid, something should happen to one of them? What happens to the organization? As far as the chamber goes, we actually had kind of an informal meeting of, what was it really, the 30s and under club, maybe a year ago, that came together. And it's this kind of, again, unique anomaly that's happening on this peninsula, where between the Trinity Bight area down through Catalan and Port Union and over to Bonavista Elliston, and then again with the social club as an example on the Bonavista Bay side, there seems to be this anomaly where the 20 and 30 somethings are really starting to come in here with a lot of the commercial spaces that we're developing. Almost all of them are young entrepreneurs in their 20s and 30s relocating to the area. I think, again, it's about creating a place, creating livability to get them here, filling those niche markets. There are very few people, I think, safe to say, our age that want to live rural, especially live rural without services, without the experience, without a certain lifestyle. And I think we've been very successful directly and indirectly from what we've done in our tourism industry to create a very livable, unique space that is now appealing more and more to the younger generation. So now that they're coming in, we need to work very hard to recruit them. So with the Chamber of Commerce, there's a few of us that are in the 20s, 30s group, and we're also seeing that with our tourism subcommittee and our young entrepreneurs group. And I think they're seeing it in other organizations. I mean, I can see it with local historical societies, the Horticultural Society, people being involved with theater and so on. So I think, again, it has to happen organically, but you have to have a reason and the groundwork done for them to actually get here first. If you have nothing
and you're in a rural space and you're trying to attract young people, it's a really, really hard sell.
Well, it's interesting for me because I ended up, I had no intentions on taking over the business. I had finished university, the business was somewhere I worked for the summers. Then I actually ended up moving to Brazil, came back and had my quarter life crisis at the age of 25. It's a thing. And I felt like I had to go do my master's, but I ended up going to drinking school instead. Actually based on 2 weeks before I went to go do my master's in Ottawa, I was serving a couple in the restaurant. And they had told me in Ottawa had this really good wine school, and I had no idea you could go to wine school. So I dropped out of my master's that night. And it was while I was away that I got a phone call from my mother saying a guest had offered to buy our business lock, stock, and barrel. And she was ready to get out because she was going, well, if none of my 4 children want to take it over, I've got to get out of the business. And that actually really scared me because suddenly you realize this quality of life that you were living. And, you know, not a lot of people. I was living in Ottawa, which, oh God, you know, it's just all full of all senators, and you know, it's just all business and concrete and Starbucks. And you know, Newfoundlanders want to be back home. And what really happened that was quite fortunate for me was the economic disaster of 2008, 2009, because the buyer ended up losing enough money he couldn't actually buy the business. I couldn't actually tell my parents not to sell because I didn't know at that age if I was going to change my mind on what I wanted to do in 2 years from now. And that's a very unfair thing to do to people in their 60s, to make them believe they're getting out of a business and then suddenly decide you want to be an astronaut. So I got to come to that conclusion on my own to come back. And what's been nice is that there's never been that pressure of I've come back and now I have to commit to it, and that makes me want to do it even more. And because we have our business set up in this way that it's so many separate buildings, there actually is always an exit plan. The way we've set it up, we could sell it all off separately and stuff. So because we don't feel trapped, it makes me want to keep going. The other thing that I've noticed, and I think I was having this discussion with our head of marketing for the Department of Tourism just last week, people are saying we've got to attract millennials, and you know, the stats are saying, well, they don't spend as much as other people, which is completely untrue. They don't spend as much on accommodations, but they save that money because they want to have a social experience. They are spending that money going out on whale watching trips. The Skirwin Coastal is full all the time. They have actual guests who stay for a month and will go 5 to 6 times on a whale watching trip, same trip over and over again. But what I found is the people who are coming, the people who create my friend base now in the area, are Martha and Gavin, who came because they saw a Newfoundland Labrador tourism ad in a movie theater in Toronto and decided to come on vacation, decided to stay. Adam and Sarah, who now have shop in Trinity and in Bonavista, they came as tourists and decided they wanted to stay. So I think if we open up our tourism to millennials, which really the big issue right now is access, we need to figure out the transportation. We will actually be bringing in people who will want to come and stay. And with a declining population, to me, I think that that should be the long-term goal if we want to keep people going and people who want to take over businesses.
I think we have a couple of questions in the queue. So what we'll do, and if anyone else has one, put up your hand now. Shri, and then I think Ivan. And what I'm going to do is, you folks pay attention. So I won't get you to answer Shri right away. Then we'll hear what Ivan has to say. And then if there's one last one, I'll fit it in. And then we'll work our way right to left. And you can answer whatever you want. That'll be a closing comment. Shri.
Thank you. It was really fascinating to listen to all the speakers. My name is Shri Mule, as he referred to me, Shri. I have gone to at least 5 of the regional workshops that have been organized by the Harris Center. And I'm in the Faculty of Medicine, so a lot of what you are saying does not actually relate to the work that I do. But what has been fascinating about going to all of these regional workshops, and particularly the panels that they have had on the eve of the workshop, has informed me a great deal about, and I learn about Newfoundland. As you can make out, I'm from a CFA of recent mint. So it makes a big difference to hear all of these stories and to be inspired by what is being done locally, particularly looking at the panel that they are really people who are millennials themselves and looking to recruit people to have a long-term investment. But my question actually is directed to the first speaker. I unfortunately came in a little bit late, but I thought that you were talking about corporate responsibility and corporate enterprise in social enterprise in a certain sense. And we came down today, when we drove down here, I was with somebody, Nicole, who was sitting back there, who is currently looking after the Center for Social Enterprise. So I wondered if you had something more to add about really looking at all of these factors, listening to all these stories as to how that investment by corporations in the would be something that could be increased even further than it is right now. Because I heard that ACOA has invested heavily, but ACOA is still part of the government, sort of arm's distance from the government, but is still funding from the state as opposed to funding from the corporate sector.
Thank you, Sri. I'm glad you joined me in not letting Jennifer off the hook. Save your comment for last. Ivan, I think you were in the gentleman back left. That'll be it.
Thanks. Like the others, I'd like to echo my praise for the presentation. It was very, very inspiring and so on. In the discussion about regional development, you often see a privilege that if we could only sell this natural resource, we could make money. There's a lot of focus on that rather than on culture or what you've done here in terms of creating place and so on. And you referred, John, directly to cultural creatives and so on. But I'm curious, when you get to things like grocery stores and medicine and libraries and that kind of infrastructure that is also important for making life or a community worth living, have you seen a sense that people have found it convincing, the argument that you've used the arts and heritage and place kind of area to create development in this region? Is that as convincing to the people who are making decisions about grocery stores and hospitals as if you had just put in a honking big pulp and paper mill or something like that? I would hope that it's optimistic, that what you say is that yes, they find it as convincing, but it's very inspiring to see that.
Be attacked over here.
Thank you. So we'll hold that. Okay, we have two last questions. Colin, back corner, plaid shirt. Flip it over there. These are short snappers.
Oh, thanks, Rob. I was actually just stretching, but I guess I'll have to ask a question now. So, yeah, I guess my kind of question that kind of comes to a lot of things that we've done with the Chamber of Commerce is individuals and individual organizations that come together, I think, are doing a wonderful job on the peninsula. And as been a number of speakers said, that we've had great support through agencies like BCCRD and ACOA. But I wanted to speak to in relation to some of the negative things that the relationship with government entails, certainly around regulations and I guess what we've had with the recent budget where the goalposts change quite quickly. And so you can be working towards building a sustainable region and whatever that means or entails, but how the goalposts can be changed quite quickly. I wonder, yeah, if you could speak to that.
Hi, my question is going to seem like it's coming out of left field, but all this talk about millennials, and I'm looking over to my left. I'm wondering what you see the role of social media playing in development of creative spaces and cultural destinations.
Okay, so there's a smorgasbord of questions. Marieke goes first, then John, then Marilyn. And
I'm going to talk really slow to drive this guy crazy. Sorry, there's so many things going on there and questions. I don't even know where to start. I think kind of to address Shane's point about the negativity or the negative aspects of what to overcome, what I've always found kind of difficult is a lot of times it's a chicken and the egg situation, because it's sort of like, you know, if a funding agency is going to give funding, you have to have a proposal, but part of the proposal is to hire someone to write the proposal to get the funding from the funding agency. So it's like, how do you even get going? And I remember we have this exhaustion of meetings because you end up going to a meeting, you have the same conversation about what needs to be done, but then we all leave the meeting and we have a billion things to do that doesn't involve the volunteer side of what we're doing. So I think that's one of the hardest things is that we're always saying we need a human resource. I have to always argue that there's got to be people on the ground within the regions. We can't have a disconnect, and if people from way over there are making decisions for people who are way over here and not having the conversations, it's very easy for us to think we understand what we're talking about. And that's where I think a lot of frustration kind of happens, because when you're working from a private business side, even between private business and not-for-profit, because it's so different how we function. I can make a decision about how I spend $5 and not have to write a 10-page proposal on it. And then the other places, get to write proposals too and get a lot of money that I'm going, well, that would have been nice too as a private business. So I think it's understanding how we work differently, but then figuring out, okay, what can we do to work together? Your question was?
Social media.
Social media. It's so funny, I think it is about Newfoundland is sold as a people-based entity. You come here for that interaction. So I think social media has been really possible for putting people in what it's going to be like to come here. They can watch what's happening with the whale watching tours. They can get a sense of roots, rants, and roars through videos. But and I I take it back 25 years. I made the point that my mom learned how to write code because she was the parent volunteer in my grade 4 website making class. I had a scholarship to a private school, so we had website making class in grade 4. So she wrote that, and she really saw the power of that back then. And it is a way of bringing the entire world to what seems like one of the 4 corners of the earth. It really opens it up and it puts us on a level playing field with every other destination in the world. And I think that using that and taking advantage of that is really important. So we have to make sure that people know how to do it, but it's hard. I mean, geez, there's so many. It's like Kaleidoscope or Periscope and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all of that kind of stuff. So it's about deciding what works for you, I think, and not wasting your time doing stuff that's not going to work, but focusing on the small things that are. All right, I think I've tortured that man enough.
And Sarah is actively tweeting the whole discussion about social media. So, John, last comments, answers.
Where do I begin? If I start, a lot of people that know me are smiling in the audience. I start chatting about challenges with the budget, the government, and so on. I'll have a nosebleed. I'll start with the easy one, social media. Well, not easy for me. I don't have Facebook, never have. I barely knew what Instagram was. I have the luxury within our company of being able to hire someone part-time to handle that for us. It's a major undertaking. We have a marketing manager that half of her week is just social media and pushing what we're doing and pushing Bonavista and just getting that word out over and over and over again. And as Marieke touched on in her discussion, it's going to benefit everyone. And I mean, just because I'm saying Bonavista, it gets people onto the peninsula. People are always looking for the new thing. If that be in Elliston, Bonavista, Trinity, wherever, it gets them here. And then we trap them. And we go from there. But I mean, the importance can't be undervalued or underdescribed for sure. To get into Shane's point, who's a member of the executive for the Chamber of Commerce, he knows very well how I feel, and I think how we should all feel, and touching on the other questions as well. Surrounding the sustainability of the region, it's something that we have spoken to various high-level bureaucrats and ministers recently on. It's very, very challenging, I'm sure, for not-for-profits, and as much or more so for private business to justify significant investment if the government themselves, by virtue of these cuts, illustrated through these various cuts that they're making, specifically and mostly in rural Newfoundland, it makes it more and more challenging to have the region as a sustainable region. I mean, if you cut back healthcare, if you cut back education, if you cut back government services, the anchor services that we require to move in the millennials with the services that they expect, it is near impossible. Why has this region been so successful? relatively speaking, when compared to a lot of other rural areas in rural Newfoundland, because we have a lot of anchor government services per capita, as much or in some cases more so. But my argument is, why shouldn't we? And why shouldn't we maintain them? They have been the keystone that has made much of what we are doing possible. Do you really think entrepreneurs would move into an area and start a business and raise children if there weren't the appropriate schools, colleges, hospital and health services? No, it's common sense. So I find it very challenging to in any way understand how you can make these types of ludicrous cuts that in many cases don't actually result in savings, and then instead put the sustainability of a region that has been celebrated as growing in its sustainability in peril. So it's a real conundrum, and one that keeps me awake at night a lot lately. And all the people that sit around meeting tables with me have heard this diatribe a lot lately. So I'll just end it there. We have to, again, work as a region, work united, the business community, the not-for-profit sector, the Chamber of Commerce alone representing over 2,000 business owners and employees, and push this, that we are successful and we should be rewarded for it and not penalized. And I think that's all I can say on that.
Thank you, John. Marieke has one quick point.
Sorry,
Didn't want you to finish after her, obviously.
Sorry, to answer about the social media thing, it doesn't just change the way we're contacting the world. That is actually, in my opinion, one of the best ways that it's changing how we are interacting with each other. I've been away all winter, but I've known exactly what John Norman has been doing because I'm following him on these social media sites. I knew that Adam and Sarah's Sweet Rock ice cream shop opened this week. I knew that Boreal Coffee Shop brewed their first cup of coffee recently because of that. And that's actually changing the way I know what's happening, because I don't have time, or we don't have time, to look on every single website of every single business, but that's helping us all figure out what's going on in the area and promote each other versus just trying to promote ourselves to other people. So,
Marilyn, last comments, answers.
I think, again, coming third, most everything is said by now, but I just want to certainly reiterate what John just said with regard to the environment. It's so essential, it's of the utmost importance that we have these services, because we're not going to survive. We're not going to attract new people here in a younger generation. Also, one of the gentlemen asked, if what being done is in this area is recognized the same as if you brought in a big plant or something. In all honesty, I don't think so, because, and that's one of our greatest challenges as well. And many times, many tables have said we need a return on investment study as to what is happening in this region, be it as a region, be it as a subsection of the region, but there needs to be some recognition that there's lots of things happening here that need to be, and the return on the investment that has gone into this area is just phenomenal. So that needs to be done for sure, and I really don't think as of now that that recognition is there.
Thank you, Marilyn. Yeah. Jennifer, one question was directed solely at you, plus any pithy summary you'd like to do.
I don't know. I'm supposed to answer particularly Shree's question. I'm going to talk about my research, okay? Because I don't think I can answer it directly. But what I can say is that the research that I've been doing that sort of comes out of the ideas that I presented today is I want to find out how we can get businesses, particularly bigger businesses, right? So what's been happening here is fabulous. And I learned so much from your presentations. I want to know about things like Walmart or Shoppers Drug Mart, who use in Newfoundland the, I think, underfunded value of the arts, right? We sell ourselves as a province on our arts, our music, and our theater, and our visual arts, and our beautiful landscapes. And these other businesses don't seem to have that investment. So my research right now is trying to find out why and how can we find ways of convincing these businesses to engage in the arts. And I think a huge part of that is engaging in place, right? So opening up this notion of if the arts and if our identities are tied to place, then these people, these businesses, these corporations who come in should also engage with that too. So that's basically where I'm coming from here. And I should mention that my research is partly funded by the Harris Center and by MUN. and by business and arts, you know. So yeah, I don't think that really answers your question, but it's where I'm coming from.
Thank you, Jennifer. So that really covered a lot of ground and was downright inspirational. I have much less inspirational things to say to clue us up, but important. One is to fill out your evaluations. Really important for us to get feedback on this session, but also ideas for future sessions. If you're viewing online, you can click on the screen and do that. If you fill it in here, just leave it on your seat. We'll collect them after. Don't forget, really, really important. If you're not signed up for the regional workshop tomorrow, starts at 9 a.m., free breakfast at 8. The regional workshop at Fisher's Loft at the conference center. We have a lot of folks here from MUN, and there's a bunch from the college as well who are participating in the workshop, plus local business people, community organizations. These are really action-oriented workshops, or identifying stuff that's already going on and how can we put in better use, but also what else could we be doing together. So we're really here with a purpose to connect. So please, if you're not signed up, see Colin. Tomorrow, apparently, after our workshop, late at night, is Hurricane Colin. I think it's quite ironic. So there is Hurricane Colin that we have. And the lunch is provided during the workshop. You'll be out of there at 4, I guarantee. And there's no cost to you. Thanks a million to Jamie Best here at the College of North Atlantic in Bonavista, Tony Stagg, AV technician. And you know, MUN and the College of North Atlantic are both doing a lot more these days to promote public engagement. I think the College of North Atlantic in Bonavista, through Marilyn and many like you, have been doing it for years, and the results are clear. And so it's an honor and a privilege to hear your story and try to build on it. As always, staff at the Harris Center, I'm not going to name them all, but it's an amazing team who are here as well as back home. Our presenters, I thought, were fantastic, and I'm going to end on them in a second. But I also really want to thank you, the people from the university and the college who have come out. This is incremental to their day jobs. Unless you're at the Harris Center, you have to be here. But a lot of people are here because they want to make a difference. The people in the community, you know, Oscar Wilde said socialism would never work because nobody wants to go to all the meetings. And you can certainly see there's a lot of people going to a lot of meetings because they care in this community, in this region. And so for you coming out and you watching online, that's how our democracy works. And we can see some seething in the audience, and that's very healthy. If we're not seething, we're not engaged. So please keep it up, and please join us tomorrow. I do want to end thanking Jennifer Dyer, Marilyn Coles-Hayley, John Norman, and Marieke Gow. Fantastic job. It will be digitally recorded, kept on our website, rebroadcast. So all the pearls of wisdom will be shared forever. And please join me in thanking them for a fantastic job. And I look forward to seeing you all at Fisher's Loft tomorrow at 9 a.m. for a quick start. Coffee and tea and water and stuff here. So join us and rehash. Thanks a million. Good night.